You're shopping online for one thing. It costs $32. At checkout, shipping is $7. But then you see a message. Spend $50 and shipping is free. So you add a $20 item you weren't planning to buy. And suddenly you feel like you've won. You avoided a $7 charge. You also spent $20 extra. Nothing about the arithmetic is complicated. And yet this kind of decision feels strangely satisfying because one word has entered the transaction. Free. That word does something unusual to the way we evaluate money. A discount makes something cheaper. A bargain makes something attractive. But when a price reaches exactly zero, our decision can change in a way that ordinary price reductions don't fully explain. Which raises a much more interesting question. If free means we pay nothing, why can it make us spend more? In 2007, researchers Christina Champenier, Nina Mazar, and Dan Ariely published a series of experiments examining exactly this strange boundary between cheap and free. One of their experiments gave people a choice between chocolates. In one version, a Hershey's chocolate cost 1 cent, while a more desirable Ferrero Rocher cost 26 cents. 40% chose the Hershey's. 40% chose the Ferrero. The rest chose neither. Then the researchers reduced both prices by exactly 1 cent. The Ferrero now cost 25 cents. The Hershey's was free. Economically, almost nothing had changed. The difference between the prices was still 25 cents. Psychologically, almost everything changed. Now 90% chose the free Hershey's, while only 10% chose the Ferrero. A 1 cent reduction between two positive prices had barely mattered. But the 1 cent reduction that crossed the boundary to zero produced a dramatic shift. That phenomenon became known as the zero price effect. And the strange part isn't that more people wanted the Hershey's when it became cheaper. Of course they did. The strange part is what happened to the more valuable alternative. People moved away from the better chocolate even though its relative price had barely changed. Under a simple cost-benefit calculation, reducing both prices equally shouldn't suddenly transform which product looks better. The Ferrero was still 25 cents more expensive than the Hershey's, just as it had been before. Yet the moment the Hershey's became free, people behaved as if the chocolate itself had somehow become more valuable. That is the first clue. We don't always experience free as merely a very low price. Sometimes we experience it as a different category of decision. Think about what happens when something costs $1. Your brain has work to do. Is it worth $1? Will I actually use it? Could I spend that dollar on something better? Is there a catch? Do I really want this? The price forces a comparison between a benefit and a sacrifice. Now make the price zero. A surprising amount of that internal argument disappears. The question is no longer, is this worth what I have to give up? It becomes something closer to, why wouldn't I take it? And that shift matters because every purchase contains two sides. There is the pleasure of getting something, and there is the discomfort of giving something up. Money, time, effort, risk, opportunity. A positive price keeps both sides visible. Free can make one side appear to disappear. Behavioral economists have long studied what is sometimes called the pain of paying, the negative psychological component attached to parting with money. Dražen Prelec and George Lowenstein argued that this relationship between consumption and payment can influence how we experience purchases and regulate spending. At zero, there is no payment to feel. You receive the benefit without experiencing an immediate monetary loss. And that can make the offer feel unusually clean. No trade-off, no regret, no risk of wasting money. You may waste time. You may choose something you don't really want. You may give up another opportunity. But those costs are less visible. Money has a number attached to it. Opportunity cost usually doesn't. The researchers behind the zero-price experiments tried to understand whether this was merely a quirk of chocolate. So they constructed an even stranger test. Participants could choose between Amazon gift certificates. Imagine the choices. You could get a $10 certificate for $5 or a $20 certificate for $12. The larger certificate gives you $8 of net value. The smaller gives you $5. Then the prices fall. The $10 certificate costs $1. The $20 certificate costs $8. Again, the larger one gives more net value. Then the critical version appears. A $10 certificate for free, or a $20 certificate for $7. The $20 certificate still leaves you $13 ahead. The free certificate leaves you $10 ahead. If you were looking purely at the financial value of the transaction, paying $7 for 20 should be the better deal. Yet, in that experimental condition, demand shifted completely toward the free $10 certificate. The attraction survived even when the thing being bought was money itself. That tells us something important. The problem isn't simply that people can't calculate whether one chocolate is better than another. We can understand the numbers perfectly and still feel differently about zero. The researchers tested that emotional component directly. Participants evaluated offers such as a Hershey's for 1 cent, a Lindt truffle for 13 or 14 cents, and a Hershey's for free. The free offer generated a much stronger positive emotional reaction than the other offers. Then came perhaps the most useful experiment of all. Another group was forced to slow down before choosing. Instead of immediately reacting to the prices, participants had to explicitly consider things like how much more they preferred the better chocolate and how much they disliked paying the extra amount. Once people were pushed into deliberate comparison, the zero price effect became much weaker and was no longer statistically significant in that condition. In other words, the antidote to free was not some advanced financial formula. It was thinking, and that is where a small chocolate experiment turns into a very large business idea. Because companies rarely need the free thing itself to make money. They need the free thing to change what happens next. Consider free shipping. Suppose your cart contains $42 worth of products. Shipping costs $6. But shipping becomes free at $50. You now face two very different decisions. The first is the original one. Do I want these products for $42 plus shipping? The second is the one created by the offer. What else can I buy so I don't have to pay for shipping? Those questions sound similar. Financially, they are not. The shipping threshold has transformed spending into a form of saving. Add a $10 product, and your brain gets to tell a pleasant story. I spent another $10, but I saved $6. The $6 loss feels avoidable. The additional purchase feels productive. Researchers studying threshold-based free shipping have found that the way such thresholds are structured can change consumer responses, even when the underlying economics are equivalent. And once you notice this mechanism, free starts appearing everywhere. Buy 2, get 1 free. A free gift with purchase. 1 month free. Free delivery above a minimum order. Free software with paid upgrades. A free game with optional purchases. A free service supported by advertising. A free product that requires an accessory. A free trial that becomes a paid subscription. These aren't all the same business model, and they aren't automatically bad deals. That distinction matters. Sometimes free genuinely is free. A company may have a good reason to give something away. Digital products can be cheap to distribute to one additional user. A free version can let customers discover whether a product is useful. Advertising can allow one group to subsidize another. A company can rationally sacrifice revenue on one product because another part of the relationship is more valuable. There is nothing inherently deceptive about that. The deeper principle is more interesting. A business does not necessarily need to charge you at the moment it gives you value. It can make money somewhere else. That somewhere else is what you should look for. With a freemium product, the free user may eventually upgrade. With an advertising-supported service, access may be free because advertisers pay for exposure to the audience. With a free sample, the sample may lower the uncertainty involved in buying the full product. With free shipping, the retailer may encourage a larger basket. With a free trial, the price barrier to starting disappears, while the decision about paying can be moved into the future. Free is therefore not merely a price. It can be a tool for moving the price. Move it to another product. Move it to another customer. Move it to another moment. Move it from money to attention. Move it from the first transaction to the 10th. And once you see that, the title "Why Free Makes You Spend More" becomes slightly misleading in an important way. Free does not magically force people to spend. What it can do is change the frame around the decision. That frame is where the money is made. Imagine two offers. The first says, spend $60. Your instinct is to evaluate the $60. The second says, get this free when you spend $60. The economic requirement may be identical, but now your attention has been directed toward what you are gaining rather than what you are giving up. The expense is still there. It just has competition, and the free reward is psychologically loud. This is one reason intelligent people can make these decisions just as easily as anyone else. The mistake is not an inability to add. It is an attention problem. You carefully evaluate the thing marked 0 while failing to evaluate everything that 0 causes you to do. That is a second-order cost. And second-order costs are where many financial mistakes hide. A free trial costs nothing today, but perhaps it creates a future subscription you would not otherwise have started. A free gift costs nothing, but perhaps you bought from a more expensive retailer to receive it. Free shipping saves $6, but perhaps you added $15 of things you did not need. A free app costs nothing in money, but perhaps you spend hours inside it. The first-order price really is 0. The total economic cost does not have to be. This is also where a useful correction is necessary. The zero price effect is not a law of nature. The original researchers themselves cautioned that context matters and that behavior around small consumer choices does not automatically tell us how someone will behave with every major financial decision. They tested larger hypothetical purchases as well, but acknowledged that the boundary conditions around 0 remain complex. Nobody should expect a person to choose a terrible house over a perfect house simply because the first one is somehow labeled free. As the stakes become larger and the consequences more obvious, deliberate thought has more reason to enter the decision. And that points directly to the practical lesson. The danger is greatest when the free offer feels too small to deserve analysis. That complimentary extra item, that extra month, that shipping charge, that upgrade, that sample, that reward you have to spend just a little more to unlock. The amounts are small enough that your analytical brain may never be invited into the room. So the best defense is surprisingly simple. When a deal contains something free, mentally delete the free part. Then look at the transaction again. If the shipping offer vanished, would you still add the extra product? If the bonus gift disappeared, would you still buy from that store? If the first month were not free, would you actually want the service? If there were no reward points, would you still make the purchase? If the answer is yes, the free benefit may genuinely improve a decision you were already going to make. Take it. But if removing the free item changes the entire decision, then the free item is not merely giving you value. It is steering you. There is another question worth asking. What am I giving up that isn't written on the price tag? Maybe nothing. Maybe the offer is excellent. But perhaps it costs time. Perhaps it requires a larger order. Perhaps it introduces a recurring payment. Perhaps it pushes you toward an inferior product. Perhaps it makes you ignore a cheaper alternative. Perhaps it simply gets you to acquire something you never wanted until its price became 0. That last one is especially strange, because the cheapest purchase you can make is not a free product. It is the product you never needed. A free object can still occupy your home. A free subscription can still occupy your attention. A free service can still influence your behavior. And a free reward can still cause an expensive decision. 0 removes the monetary price from one part of the transaction. It does not erase opportunity cost. That is why free is one of the most brilliant words in business. It can describe a genuine benefit and create a psychological blind spot at exactly the same time. The companies using it do not necessarily need you to misunderstand arithmetic. They just need you to focus on the wrong piece of it. And once you know that, the next free offer looks different. You can still enjoy the sample. Take the free month. Use the free software. Hit the shipping threshold when the extra purchase genuinely makes sense. Free is not the enemy. The mistake is assuming that because one price is 0, the entire decision has no cost. Because the most powerful thing about free is not that it saves us money. It is that, for a moment, it can make us stop thinking about money. And sometimes that is exactly when we spend the most.